Hi everyone. In this lecture today, what I wanted to talk to you about was some of the practical solutions for solving environmental problems and what organisations can do to create a profit or reduce costs, as well as start to address some of the environmental problems that we've talked about throughout the course. Before I start, the image in the background of these slides is Cansera. So this is an image, again, that Chris Jordan has created out of aluminium cans. So in this image, 106,000 aluminium cans, which is the number that was used in the US every 30 seconds back in 2007. So in the lecture today, what I want to talk about is eco-efficiency and some of the principles around eco-efficiency, cradle-to-cradle design, as well as biomimicry as concepts that are taking sustainability forward. So when we talk about eco-efficiency, it kind of boils down to this concept of doing more with less. So the definition from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development suggests that eco-efficiency is achieved by the delivery of competitively priced goods and services that satisfy human needs and bring quality of life. And at the same time, they reduce ecological impacts and resource intensity throughout the life cycle to at least the level that's in line with the Earth's estimated carrying capacity. So eco-efficiency, as I said, boils down to doing more with less. It's about creating value while at the same time reducing the amount of resources that are used. So the challenge then, providing more value with less impact and delinking the growth of welfare from the use of natural resources. So the aim then is to produce both economic and ecological efficiency, thus the concept eco-efficiency. We can think about eco-efficiency in four different ways. So it can be implemented across the organisation. So the first one is redesigning products. So this is about looking at the full life cycle of a product and identifying opportunities to improve efficiency. So it might be looking at how a product is at the end of its life and taking that product back so it can be reused. An example from Fuji Xerox, where they redesigned their copiers so that their parts could be taken apart at the end of their life and reused and remanufactured into a new product. So it's saving the organisation money by not having to remanufacture those components, and at the same time those components are not going to landfill. Rethinking markets is the idea of looking at the consumers and identifying what it is that the consumers are actually wanting. So what is the service essentially? So we might shift from selling a product to selling a service. So some of the research that I do looks at water and energy use, and rather than selling the water and energy, actually selling the service that water and energy supplies. So whether it be cooking, sustenance, or thermal comfort, it's about selling the service rather than the product itself. The next idea is re-engineering processes. So again, looking at the full life cycle of a product and how it's produced, and identifying opportunities along that manufacturing process or the process of that product or service, and identifying opportunities to improve efficiency. So it might be reducing water in a supply chain. So an example of the Forex Brewery in Queensland, so they identified opportunities to use recycled water in their cooling towers rather than using mains water. As a result, they've improved the efficiency of water use across the organisation. And then revaluing byproducts. So this is looking at waste in a different way. An example is the good guys in Capalaba. What they did was they used to dispose or pay to dispose of the recycled polystyrene. Sorry, not recycled, but expanded polystyrene that comes that packs white goods to keep them safe during transport and shipping. So that product was a waste product. It used to be disposed of, and the organisation had to pay for that product to be disposed of. But what they did was they linked with another organisation that used that expanded polystyrene as an input into their production process for creating photo frames and small goods like that. So that product that was previously waste is now valuable input into a new organisation's business. So the organisation collected the waste for free, so it reduced the costs of the good guys, and it also reduced the costs of this other organisation creating those frames because they got their input material for free. So it's about revalorising waste. But when we talk about eco-efficiency, we're talking about improving the efficiency of the organisation, definitely, but it's not necessarily um, doing good. So the authors of Cradle to Cradle talk about this idea, well, is eco-efficiency really about doing good, or is it just about being less bad? So they question eco-efficiency and suggest that actually being less bad is actually not good. So they, McDonoghue and Bronegart suggest that eco-efficiency is admirable for sure, and it can be the starting point, but it's not a strategy for long-term success. So they suggest that actually what we need to do is look at the full life cycle of a product and close that loop. So there is no waste, and we look to nature for examples of that. So eco efficiency is about consuming less, producing less, and minimizing, avoiding, reducing, and sacrificing. Well, actually, looking at cradle to cradle principles and following nature, what we actually do is then not minimize what we're doing, but actually doing it in a way that values nature and contributes to the positive environment. So, what would it mean then to be 100% good? And this concept of biomimicry is an example of that. So, biomimicry comes from bio meaning life and mimesis meaning imitation. So, looking to nature to solve design problems essentially. And there's two TED Talks up on this module. So, one on cradle to cradle design and one on biomimicry. And I'd really encourage you to have a look at those. So in biomimicry, we look to nature, so studying what nature does to solve problems. So the example of a plane, then the design of the plane actually comes from mimicking birds' wings, so getting flight by looking at the way nature solves problems. So we use nature then as a model, as a mentor and a measure. So the way that nature uses every part of a process. So leaves fall to the ground and are then giving off nutrients, and it's a full life cycle analysis. So in the life cycle analysis that you guys will do in this module, have a think about how that waste is created and how it can be reused. So it's really about closing the loop. So mimicking nature in order to create value. So in summary, there's some really positive opportunities to use current resources more efficiently. So we can do that through the principles of eco-efficiency, and that's often a good starting place. But it's not the end point, and we need to consider this full life cycle analysis in order to identify opportunities for cradle to cradle and close the loop of production, whether that be through cradle to cradle design or implementing biomimicry principles. But we can't just use products more efficiently. We really need to look for opportunities to close this loop.